Welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast. My name is Ian Ray, your host. Today I have Stuart Bunker, based out of Cedar City, Utah. He is the owner of Unshoes. Stuart, welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast.
Thanks. I'm actually not the founder, just the owner.
Okay, the owner. Yes, that's correct. So, since you're not the founder, tell us, how did you get here? As far as like Unshoes, because there is a store behind this. And kind of give us like how you got into barefoot shoes, sandals, and whatnot. So go ahead.
Sure. So in a previous life, I was a career counselor at Southern Utah University. And there were certain times in the year where there was not a lot of students around, summers specifically. And so I had some spare time to read some books. I read a book called, there's a couple of Fooled by Randomness and The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, where he just talks about sort of things being anti-fragile, sort of is the opposite of fragile, right? And what most people think of as robust, right? Which is something that is really hard to break. But anti-fragile is actually something that gains from stressors, right? And so one of the examples that he gives in some of those books is feet and barefoot, barefoot walking, barefoot running, all that kind of stuff, and how sort of the more within reason you throw at your feet, right, then actually the stronger they get. And so that's when I started looking into barefoot shoes, barefoot sandals, that kind of stuff. I found Unshoes, which was started by Terrell Fox, and found that they were local, swung by their production facility, purchased a set of sandals, became friends with Terrell. Fast forward a few years later, I was looking to get out of higher education. He was looking to have somebody take over the day-to-day of Unshoes. So I took that over, worked for him for a little while, decided that I wanted to try some other stuff out. I had thought that I would just stay in higher ed my whole career for a while. And then when that became obvious that it wasn't going to be, then I kind of stretched my wings and did a few different things. Went and worked for a boarding school for a little while, and then started a separate business doing private driver's ed, of all things. So anyway, after a couple of years of doing private driver's ed, which I still do, Terrell had decided to homestead, to move to Missouri. And he was trying to figure out whether he should move Unshoes out there, sell it, shut it down without selling it. I don't know. He was considering all sorts of different options. And when I had left, I said, hey, if you're ever interested in selling Unshoes, let me know. Who knows if I'll be able to buy it or not, but let me know. I'd be interested. So he reached out, we chatted about the different options, and then I ended up buying it.
What year was this that you purchased from Terrell?
Just about a year ago.
Okay.
So I want to say it was like September-ish of last year.
And do you recall like when he started the brand?
So he started Unshoes, I want to say it was 2013. So his story is really interesting as well. He was working, doing, I think it was sort of social media, graphic design for an insurance company. And at the time, he was wearing a popular set of sandals that people wear a fair bit while he was hiking. And he was burning through 2 to 3 pairs per year. And so he was always sort of saving for his next pair. And then as he had kind of saved up, he had a good chunk of money set aside to buy this next pair of sandals. Then he actually got let go from that job. So then he figured it's probably not the best idea to spend, over $100 on a pair of sandals when I just lost my job. I've got wife and kids at home. And he had started looking into kind of the barefoot movement, stuff like that. So he bought some Vibram off of eBay and some paracord and just made himself a pair of sandals. And then his wife said, you should sell those on Etsy. So he took a picture of the sandals that he'd made himself, put them up on Etsy, custom sandals. And within 2 hours, that pair sold. So he had the guy, I think he was from overseas, trace his foot and then send him that copy. And then he put that on the rest of the Vibram rubber, cut it out by hand with just a razor blade, and then, made him a pair, took the money that he got from that, bought more Vibram rubber and some more paracord, put two more pairs up. They sold pretty quickly. And then he just kind of kept reinvesting that. And that's sort of the very beginnings of Unshoes. In the very beginning, every pair was custom cut to the shape of the person's foot. So everybody had to send in their. And then over time, they started to recognize that there were really like 5 different foot shapes.
Yeah.
And so then they had dies made to cut out those specific shapes in the various sizes. And so then people would buy that. And then over time, like 95% of people bought the same one, essentially the same one shape. So then they kind of made the other 4 shapes a custom order and started using kind of that one shape. And then from there, it's expanded a little more. Unshoes got into some closed toed and some things. So things have somewhat expanded from there. But yeah.
That is interesting. Okay. I love hearing stories how people get into, barefoot shoes like yourself and Terrell. Like it's intrigues me because I mean, I would assume Utah is pretty there's a lot of people who wear sandals year round, because it's great outdoors. People love to hike in them. But as far as barefoot movement, do you think that's pretty prominent in Utah from your perspective?
So in Cedar City, it's not. We have some customers that are here local, but it's not our real target market. Cedar City is a rural town. So you're much more likely to see people wearing cowboy boots than you are to see them wearing minimalist shoes. That being said, there's a decent chunk of people here who are still wearing minimalist shoes, whether they're unshoes or not. And I do think people are getting more and more exposure to the idea, even if it's just through, like ultras, which are, they're not minimalist, but they're at least zero drop and they have some more minimal options. So yeah, so Cedar City is not really our target market. Also, it snows here, so there's only so long in the year that you can reasonably get away with it. I mean, there are people who year round just wear the sandals, but yeah, so a lot of our market tends to be outside of Cedar City and a little more outside of Utah generally, but it's not zero in Utah, but it's closer to zero in Cedar City.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you know how the name Unshoes came about? The name itself?
So vaguely,
Okay.
I know, Terrell was starting to do this, starting to figure it out, and then realized like I should probably like get a brand and get a, come up with a name, get a website instead of just Etsy. And he started, so in the beginning, right, it was just all Etsy, right? So it was just kind of Terrell making shoes. But then as time went on, then he started to think, okay, I need to come up with a brand, come up with logos and that kind of stuff,
Uh-huh.
which which made sense because I mean he was a graphic designer, so it's not like he was opposed to that. So he designed kind of the U with the foot, and it was that idea of like shoes that are not shoes, right?
Yeah.
Because his whole ethos is it's best to be barefoot. You can't always be barefoot. So sort of we'll make the necessary evil as nice as possible or as minimally invasive as possible. And so then it was just kind of that, non-shoes or unshoes shoes kind of a thing.
Gotcha. Um, when you purchased Unshoes from Terrell, I guess kind of tell me, walk with me steps that you had to do. I mean, you never ran a footwear brand before industry, so and plus you worked for him, correct, before you purchased it. So you kind of had a
Yeah.
you dipped your toes to see what it looked like, the day to day, the operations and whatnot. How hard is it,
Yeah.
man, to just purchase you know, a brand, a company, and then like go ahead and hit all?
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it to most people. Um, so having started from scratch my driver's ed business, and then I've helped my wife. She's got a separate business where she sells homeschooling products. So I had some experience, like, I shouldn't say like everybody, but like me, I was maybe a little overconfident in what we could get done. So when I ran it, probably 4 years before I had bought it, like I was able to help things kind of go fairly well and do some things to, improve things here and there, make some adjustments that really helps things out. So I thought I knew fairly well what I was getting myself into.
Uh-huh.
What I wasn't necessarily prepared for is how how far the industry's come and how much competition there is now. So when Terrell started it, he was the first company really manufacturing any type of minimalist sandals. It's like everybody else was kind of cutting sandals out of tires. And so when he finally kind of got to the very first, version that's somewhat close to what we're making now, that was kind of the first like really manufactured thing out there. Now you can order from China 100,000 pairs of minimalist footwear tomorrow, right? You're going to have to pay tariffs on it now, and then that, so in the beginning you had to like design your own, figure it all out, and then figure out how to manufacture it. So all of ours are manufactured here in Cedar City, but other companies decided to go through China or Taiwan or wherever else, but still they had to like design it and then get that to a manufacturing facility, make sure the manufacturing facility could do it. And now you can just, there's plenty of places out there that are making some similar stuff. You tweak it or you don't tweak it, and then you just slap your label on it. There's at least 4 different companies out there selling stuff on Amazon that's the exact same shoes, but one says this name and one says the other name, right? And so,
Yeah.
so I wasn't quite prepared for how competitive the market had gotten. Yeah. So I would say that's the biggest challenge was, back in the day, you made tweaks here, you made tweaks there, and it kind of really, you were able to juice sales pretty quickly, pretty easily. And so it's just that issue of keeping up production with, scaling the production and the demand for the product at the same time. And so now it's a lot tougher nut to crack, getting people to pay for an American made minimalist shoe when they can, buy something online for less expensive.
What are some of the things that you're most proud of for the products that you have at Unshoes? So like kind of give us like some unique perspective of your products.
Yeah. So we tend to be on the more minimalist end of things. And we've kind of always been, on that end where we're really minimalist so that you can kind of get out there, feel the ground, and have that kind of minimally invasive shoe. I think Unshoes has done a good job of developing stuff that people are able to wear and enjoy, and so that's a great thing about Unshoes. But it's stayed largely the same company from the day that it was created until now, right? I'm not trying to radically change Unshoes into something different than what Terrell had. Obviously Terrell and I are different people, so there's going to be some differences. But we both value minimalist footwear. We both value creating a good quality product and trying to sell it for as reasonable a price as we can. So, and then I think Unshoes has done really well at, progressing into the closed toe footwear, the Forager. This is kind of my favorite shoes to wear around. It's got a little bit of a cushion to it because it's got some there. So like in the wintertime, that really kind of saves my feet from getting cold, because when you've got those really thin soles, then the cold soaks up through those really quickly. And then we're still tinkering with some different stuff and trying to find other ways to even create some more minimalist shoes. So this pair that I have currently that I'm wearing, we've got, so the normal version of this, it's called the Terra Vita. It has a rubberized footbed and a rubberized outsole. Well, this one has a leather outsole and a leather insole. So they're a lot lighter and you can feel the ground even more through them. The issue that we're running into is that they wear out quickly. And so we're trying to find a way to have something that lasts long enough, right? That we don't feel like we're selling a bad product, but that has that same ground feel, that same lightness, things like that. So we're going to continue to kind of innovate and see what we can do to to have that same kind of an experience with the shoe where it's really light, there's great ground feel, but also that it'll last for a while. Whereas these ones I've been wearing for about 5 months, and the outsole leather is already worn through on the heel. But and I don't know if you can see it, but the leather really sucks up, where the arch is and where your foot isn't.
Sorry.
There we
Yeah.
go. You're all right. So anyway, that's something that we're working on, is just trying to find something that really molds to the foot a little bit more, so that instead of just being kind of that barrier, it becomes, a little bit more like a sock, but not quite a sock, right? I mean, they have those rubberized socks out there.
Yeah.
Those are cool in some ways, but at some point, like, you do need, when you're on sharp rocks or things like that. There's some people out there that have incredible feet, better than mine, but I need something in between me and, lava rock.
Yeah. Sure. I understand that part. So with you are handcrafting all these, right? Manufacturing in your facility there in Cedar City. You have a team that
Yep.
works. That's another thing too. People are looking to Barefoot shoes. You're talking about how people export, because I've interviewed so many brands who do export, do all the stuff outside in Asia, import it back here, right, to US or to worldwide. So there's just the quality that goes into it. Obviously, like, you're supporting brands and supporting businesses that are local here if you're in the US. And likewise, if you're Europe, you're supporting European brands. But for those items who are in the US, there's a lot that goes into creating a product of yours. And it's more of the quality that goes into it, correct? Rather than just buying, like I said, something off Amazon or AliExpress.
Yeah. So it's nice on our front that we're just really tightly connected to the product itself. So if we hear a few people, saying we've had this issue, we can start looking at it right away instead of firing off an email to somebody who's asleep right now and then having them look into it. Oh, there was a bad batch, or, oh, there was a whatever. But you're right. It requires a lot of coordination. And, obviously we don't make every aspect of our shoes that we have, but by trying to have our finger in as much of the production process as possible, like when the tariffs hit, they affected us not at all, right? Because none of the stuff that we're buying to put into the shoes is coming from overseas, right? Like, everything that we have is sourced from here. So I want to say, like, the glue that we buy, they had some issues because some of the stuff that they were sourcing to make the glue came from overseas. But I think that's the only thing that had any, changes to price. And that was minimal enough that we didn't need to kind of make any big changes to a pricing or anything. Whereas a lot of companies said, like, we've eaten this, the price on this for a little bit. Now we've got to up prices, which makes sense. And it's nice that, tariffs could go up 1,000% tomorrow and it wouldn't affect us.
What are some ways that you've seen from the time that you purchased Unshoes to now? What are some ways that you've seen it grow and continue to change, develop to the way that you envision Unshoes?
Yeah. So we've added a new line of children's sandals. One of our biggest sellers actually is children's shoes. A lot of companies aren't interested in making children's shoes. So here's our new children's shoe. It's the Explorer version. So to be honest, I understand why other companies don't want to make kids' shoes. They cost the same amount to make as adult shoes. And quite frankly, people aren't really willing to spend the same amount on kids' shoes as they are adult shoes, generally speaking. So your margins are less. But for us, we value minimalist footwear. And so if you start that when you're 15, 17, right, when you can kind of fit into our smallest sandal, that's like, you kind of wasted all those years when the kids wanted to be barefoot anyway, right? Like, and so we really like to have that as an option. So we've had kids sandals for a long time. One of the big issues that we had is some kids didn't like having the toe post, kind of something in between their toes, like a flip flop. And so we got a fair amount of returns based on that. And so then we took our shoes called the Patempe and we just scaled it down and then made these kids ones so that there's no toe posts. And so then it's just a different offering for kids. I mean, has it been the most financially profitable thing that we've ever done? No, because once again, our margins on the kids' shoes aren't that great, but we feel like we're giving back to those people who really want this, not just for themselves, but also for their kids. And hopefully that investment pays off over time, as they become teenagers, adults. If their first pair was on shoes, hopefully they can come back for that for pairs later. But then we've also just, been trying to kind of innovate, have some new stuff come out. Unshoes lineup had been fairly stagnant for a while before we acquired it. So that's the other thing that we're working on is just new colors, new options. And then we're trying to work on just some new designs or new things, or even just different variations like the leather footbed and potentially the leather outsole. So we're kind of aggressively working on either giving more options to our existing products, but also to a certain extent trying to come up with new products.
Yeah. Is that typically, are you the head that comes up with the designs and the ideas? Do you have a team that you kind of bounce off ideas?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that we already have here and a lot of our employees, like, will just do variations on a thing because they want to try it for their own pair of shoes. And so we've been able to do some of that where it's just like, what are you doing? Let's try it. And then as we get into like new shoe designs, we're looking more to kind of find some shoe designers, partner with them, you know, do some things that way because an entirely new shoe design is a lot harder and it's a lot more work than tweaking an old one, right? So getting in new webbing to make a new sandal, you know, you get a sample of the webbing, you test it out, you make sure it meets our specs, and then you make the exact same shoe in pink now instead of just red. Give me a second. Excuse
I
me.
see.
Sorry. So yeah. So it's kind of both. We're on the variations that we're doing, that's a lot in-house. And then on the newer stuff that we're trying to bring totally new offerings in, we're working with people who have done this a bunch, just finding somebody, writing up a contract, having them design something for us. And on the plus side, we are we are the factory who makes it, so we can give them all of the criteria of like what we can do here. And so we're not just a middleman between like, oh, you know, now talk to this factory and wherever, Southeast Asia, and they can tell you whether they can or can't do that. So that's been nice, and that shortens that process a bit. But yeah.
Because for you, what are your goals that you have for
Oh, I
Unshoes?
think I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now? What are your goals for Unshoes for the next 5 to 10 years?
So we want to keep um, creating new products, kind of freshen it up, right? Get back out into the discussions, right? When people are looking for minimalist shoes. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to see what we can do to bring costs down. Obviously, with inflation, with everything else, every dollar is kind of precious to people. Yeah, and so we want to be able to provide decent jobs for our employees, provide a good product, but also not not have to break the bank to do it. And so just kind of freshen things up, get out there, get more visibility, re-engage with our existing customers, and just kind of keep developing, keep growing in a reasonable way that we can kind of keep doing. We're not trying to become the Walmart of minimalist shoes, right? There's some companies out there that want to sell to anybody and everybody. We want to stay kind of within our lane. We love our customers, but we're just never going to be the Amazon, right? We don't want some ridiculous rate of return. We don't want, returning 5 different pairs of Unshoes, right? We want to help you get the right one, and then we want you to love it. We want you to keep it until it wears out, and then buy a new pair in 3 or 4 years.
And my last question for you, where do you see the barefoot shoe industry evolving in the future?
I'm kind of losing you again.
Where do you see the barefoot shoe industry
Uh,
evolving in the future?
I think I got that question. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. So far, most of the minimalist shoe companies have kind of stayed independent, which is sort of an anomaly. Like none of the major ones that I know of have sold to larger, or like Nike doesn't own its own, right? So there's like Vibram Five Fingers is the only like major, like Fortune 500 company that is involved in the space. Everybody else is fairly small. And so that's been interesting. I'm not sure how long that will last. At some point, maybe, or maybe not. I could be totally wrong. But it seems like at some point, some larger footwear company might go, hey, maybe we should be in this space. And an easy way to do that is to kind of buy an existing company. And I don't know how that would go. I don't want to say nobody in this space is willing to sell, but it seems like they might have been offered before this point and just haven't. So I think that's an interesting prospect to see what might happen there. I do think that there's a lot of non-brands out there, selling through Amazon, selling through wherever. So I think that that'll have an impact on the space, both as far as, more and more people wearing minimalist footwear because they can try them out for inexpensive. And then, some of them will stay with whatever that is, and others will branch out to other companies. But yeah, I don't see it going away. I think people are interested in health. Various health things are always sort of a craze, and so I think people have become more and more interested in minimalist footwear. Right? It went from like fringe hippie weirdos to more and more people. There's the market penetration's been a lot better, so that's been nice. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. It'll be exciting. I think the more smaller brands are coming out, legitimate ones, who are actually have a face behind the brand, and not just drop shipping or like you're into saying, same type of shoe, but just a different brand on it. And I think there are those out there. I guess we have to be aware of, and it's great to see that your brand and your shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Splay, the company.
Mhm.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No.
So yeah, Splay is a brand up in northern Utah who started in the last few years, right? And they're making a totally different shoe than us. But once again, it's this, it's a real brand. I met the guy who started it. Great company. Doing what they can, designing great shoes. Anyway, there's a lot of great companies that have started in the last 5-10 years, that haven't been around for the, 15-16 years that Unshoes has. More will come out, and there's space for a lot of different takes on minimalist shoes. Unshoes isn't for everybody. I'm happy for it to not be, and I'm happy to send them to other companies that would fit them better, depending on what it is they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, hey, appreciate you hopping onto the podcast. I love hearing your story. I love that, you do have a passion and that you are doing the thing that you love to do now instead of the higher ed. So I'm glad that you're in a spot that you have passion and drive for.
Yeah, I love higher ed. I don't love the bureaucracy of it. So here I'm my own idiot boss, right?
Yeah, for sure. Stuart, love to have the audience learn more about what you're doing there and how they can follow, learn more about what you're doing at Unshoes. So if you would like to share an email, a website, and then a social media handle so people can learn more and contact you if they have any questions.
Of course. So the best email would be info at unshoesusa.com. Then unshoesusa.com is our website, and our social media handle. Let me just remember what it is right now. I should know this off the top of my head. So we're unshoes_footwear on Instagram. And then basically if you Google Unshoes, we should come up after all the ads. We'll be in there. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for hopping onto the podcast and showcasing your shoes. And for those of you who want to learn more, don't forget to subscribe to Stretch to Go podcast. We release new episodes every Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stuart.
thanks, Ian. Have a good one.
Appreciate it.